entitled parents' mom called me fat pig, stole my power of attorney. The first thing I heard when I woke up from my morphine haze was my mother's voice cutting through the hospital room like a rusty blade. Look at you, lying there like a beached whale. No wonder the steering wheel left such a dent, had to go around all that blubber. I blinked hard, thinking the painkillers were making me hallucinate. 3 weeks since the semi-truck ran the red light and turned my Honda into accordion metal, and I was finally coherent enough to process full conversations. This couldn't be real. Mom? My voice came out as a croak. She looked up from the papers scattered across the visitor's chair, her reading glasses perched on her nose like she was reviewing something important. Oh good, the fat pig is finally awake. The nurses have been asking about your insurance information. The words hit harder than the 18-wheeler had. I stared at this woman who'd driven 6 hours to be here, who'd been sleeping in my apartment and handling my affairs while I drifted in and out of consciousness, and tried to process what I was hearing. What did you just call me? Don't give me that wounded puppy look, Jessica. You've always been sensitive about your weight. She shuffled the papers with irritation. The doctor said you'll be fine. Few broken ribs, concussion, some internal bleeding, nothing that won't heal. Though maybe this will finally motivate you to lose some of those extra pounds you've been carrying around. I was 5 feet 6 inches and 140 pounds before the accident. On my worst day, nobody had ever called me fat, let alone a pig. But lying there in that hospital bed, wrapped in bandages with tubes coming out of my arms, I felt every ounce of self-doubt I'd ever had come crashing back. I don't understand why you're being so mean, I whispered. Mean? She laughed, a sharp sound that made my head throb. Honey, I'm the only person in this world who loves you enough to tell you the truth. Your coworkers certainly don't. They sent one sad little bouquet and haven't visited once. That boyfriend of yours hasn't even called back. Wait. What boyfriend? Mom, I've been single for 8 months. See? Even you can't keep track of your own life. She waved dismissively. That's exactly why I had to step in and handle things properly. Someone has to be the adult here. Something cold settled in my stomach that had nothing to do with the pain medication. Handle what things? Your bills, your apartment, your responsibilities. Did you think the world was going to stop spinning just because you had a little accident? She held up a thick manila folder. I've been taking care of everything while you've been lying here feeling sorry for yourself. But I have automatic payments set up for everything. And my job holds positions for medical leave. Not anymore. Her smile was sharp. I called and explained that you'd be needing extended time off. Indefinitely. They were very understanding. The heart monitor started beeping faster. You quit my job? I made practical decisions that you obviously weren't capable of making. Someone had to protect your interests. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. Now stop being so dramatic. The nurse said you might be discharged tomorrow if you stop carrying on. As she walked toward the door, I caught sight of what looked like legal documents in her folder. Official letterhead. Signatures I couldn't quite make out from this distance. Mom, what papers are those? She paused at the doorway, not turning around. Nothing you need to worry your pretty little head about, piglet. Mama's got everything under control. The next morning, I pretended to be asleep when Mom came back. Through barely cracked eyelids, I watched her settle into the chair and pull out her phone, speaking in hushed tones that somehow felt more sinister than her usual sharp tongue. Yes, I understand there's a waiting period for some of these transactions. No, she's still recovering, very disoriented. Keeps forgetting conversations we've had. That's why we moved quickly on the power of attorney while she was lucid enough to sign. Power of attorney. The words made my blood freeze. The apartment manager was very cooperative once I showed him the documentation. Said the market's hot right now, shouldn't have trouble finding a new tenant. What? Oh, most of the furniture wasn't worth keeping. I donated what I could and sold the rest. My furniture. My apartment. I wanted to scream, but some instinct told me to stay perfectly still and keep listening. The car insurance payout should clear by Friday. Total loss, obviously, but it'll help cover her medical expenses. Well, after we recoup what I've already spent on her care, naturally. She was liquidating my entire life. Listen, I need to go. She's been more alert lately, asking questions. I'll call you back tonight. Mom hung up and immediately started typing on her phone. I risked opening my eyes a little wider and saw her scrolling through what looked like a banking app. My banking app, I recognized the blue and white interface of my credit union. Good morning, sunshine. She'd caught me looking. Sleep well? I sat up slowly, my ribs screaming in protest. Mom, I heard you talking about power of attorney. What did you mean? Oh, that. She waved her hand like it was nothing. Just some paperwork we took care of when you were admitted. Standard procedure for medical decisions. Don't you remember signing it? I definitely didn't remember signing anything, but the past few weeks were a blur of pain and medication. Maybe I had signed something and forgotten? The doubt must have shown on my face. Poor baby, the concussion really scrambled your brains, didn't it? Her voice dripped with fake sympathy. The doctor said memory issues are completely normal. That's why it's so important that someone responsible is handling your affairs. But you said something about my apartment. Jessica, we talked about this yesterday. You agreed that keeping an apartment you can't afford while you're unemployed doesn't make financial sense. I'm just following through on what we discussed. Had we discussed it? I genuinely couldn't remember. The gaslighting was so smooth, so competent, that I started questioning my own memory. Maybe I was more messed up than I realized. I want to see the papers I signed. Of course, honey. They're at home with all your other important documents. I'll bring them tomorrow. She gathered her purse, that damned folder tucked securely under her arm. Right now you need to focus on getting better. Let Mama worry about everything else. After she left, I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to separate real memories from morphine dreams. But one thing was crystal clear, the way she'd been talking on that phone call wasn't about helping me. It was about helping herself. I pressed the call button for the nurse. If I was going to figure out what Mom had really done, I needed to start with what I'd actually signed and when. Because something told me those signatures weren't as voluntary as she wanted me to believe. When Nurse Patricia came in, her usual warm smile faltered the moment she saw my face. Everything okay, honey? You look upset. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. I struggled to sit up straighter. What exactly did I sign when I was admitted here? Patricia's eyebrows knitted together. Sign? Well, there were the standard admission forms, insurance paperwork, consent for treatment. She paused. Why? Is there something specific you're concerned about? My mother mentioned a power of attorney. She said I signed it while I was here. Oh. Patricia's expression shifted, and I caught something that looked almost like discomfort. Let me check your chart, okay? I'll be right back. She was gone for nearly 20 minutes. When she returned, she had another nurse with her, Sandra, the head nurse I'd seen making rounds but never spoken to directly. Jessica, Sandra said, pulling up a chair. Patricia mentioned you're asking about legal documents? Yes. My mother says I gave her power of attorney while I was a patient here. I don't remember signing anything like that. Sandra and Patricia exchanged a look that made my stomach clench. Honey, Sandra said carefully, we don't handle power of attorney documents here at the hospital. Those would need to be notarized, usually by a lawyer or at a bank. We only deal with medical consent forms. The room started spinning, and it wasn't from the concussion. So I couldn't have signed one here? Not through us, no. But... Sandra hesitated. I do remember your mother mentioning she brought some paperwork for you to review. This was about a week ago, when you were pretty heavily medicated but conscious. She said it was insurance stuff and asked for privacy while you two discussed it. Patricia nodded. I remember that day. She had you sign several things. I assumed it was all medical related since that's what she told us. Did anyone witness what I signed? Or check what the documents were? We're not supposed to get involved in family legal matters, Sandra said gently. And you seemed to understand what was happening at the time. I felt sick. What day was this exactly? Sandra flipped through my chart. March 15th. You'd just been moved out of ICU. Your pain medication had been reduced, but you were still on a pretty high dose. March 15th. I barely remember that entire week, let alone a specific day. But I was starting to remember something else, Mom's voice, soothing and concerned, telling me I needed to sign just a few forms to make sure she could help take care of me. In my drugged haze, it had seemed reasonable, loving even. Is there any way to find out what I actually signed? Not from our end, Sandra said. But if you're concerned about legal documents, you might want to contact a lawyer. They could help you figure out what's been filed and whether it was done properly. After they left, I stared at my phone for a long time before finally calling my friend Mike. He was the closest thing I had to a lawyer friend, paralegal at a downtown firm, but he'd know what questions to ask. Jess. Oh my God, I've been worried sick. Your mom said you weren't up for visitors yet. My mom had been screening my calls and visitors. Of course she had. Mike, I need help. I think my mother tricked me into signing something while I was on pain medication, and she's been using it to mess with my finances. Jesus. What kind of something? Power of attorney, maybe? She's quit my job, sold my furniture, and I think she's planning to sell my apartment. There was a long pause. Jess, if she has legitimate POA, technically she can do those things. But if you were coerced or not competent when you signed. He took a breath. How fast can you get copies of what you signed? She says she has them at home. Don't wait for her to show you. We need to check the county records first thing Monday morning. If she filed anything official, it'll be there. Sunday night, I barely slept. Mom didn't visit that day, which was almost worse than her being there. It gave me too much time to think, to remember fragments of conversations that maybe hadn't happened the way she said they had. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. Because I was starting to realize that my mother hadn't just been cruel, she'd been calculating. Monday morning arrived with a kind of gray, drizzling rain that matched my mood perfectly. Mike had texted me early that he'd meet me at the courthouse as soon as I could get discharged for a few hours. Getting that temporary release turned into its own nightmare. Absolutely not, Dr. Martinez said when I requested a day pass. You're still recovering from major trauma. You need bed rest, not running around town playing detective. This is about my legal and financial well-being. My mother may have committed fraud. Then call a lawyer. Have them come here. He was already moving toward the door. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter needs to focus on healing, not legal dramatics. Mrs. Patterson? I looked up to see Mom standing in the doorway, perfectly timed as always. She was wearing her concerned mother face, the one that fooled everyone who didn't know her. Doctor, I'm so sorry. Jessica's been getting increasingly paranoid lately. I think it might be a side effect of the medication. She stepped closer to my bed. Honey, we talked about this. You agreed I should handle everything until you're better. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that I watched Dr. Martinez's expression shift from concern for me to concern about me. In 30 seconds, she painted me as an unstable patient and herself as the long-suffering caregiver. I'm not paranoid. I'm asking legitimate questions about documents I supposedly signed while heavily medicated. Of course you can ask questions, Mom said, pulling out her phone. In fact, I've scheduled an appointment with my financial advisor for Thursday. We can review everything together then. Thursday. That would give her 3 more days to cover her tracks, move money around, or create false documents. I could see Mike's warnings about evidence preservation going up in smoke. I want to see those papers today. Right now. Jessica. Dr. Martinez's voice carried a warning. You're getting agitated, and that's not good for your recovery. Perhaps we should discuss adjusting your medication. Adjusting my medication. Making me more compliant. Mom's eyes glittered with satisfaction. I'll bring everything tomorrow, Mom said. Let me go home and gather all the paperwork so we can go through it properly. After she left, I called Mike from the bathroom, the only place I could get privacy. She's stonewalling, I whispered. And she's got the doctor thinking I'm having some kind of breakdown. Okay, change of plans. I'm coming there. Can't check records without you present anyway, but I can at least look over whatever she brings and spot obvious problems. What if she doesn't bring the real documents? Then we'll know she's hiding something. Jess, listen to me, document everything. Every conversation, every excuse, every delay. If this goes to court, the pattern of behavior matters as much as the paperwork. When I hung up, I realized someone was listening outside the bathroom door. Footsteps moved away quickly when I turned the handle, but whoever it was had definitely been there. Back in my room, I found a different nurse organizing my medications, someone I'd never seen before. Where's Patricia today? Oh, she's been reassigned to a different floor, the new nurse said without looking up. I'm Karen. I'll be handling your care from now on. Patricia had been reassigned right after helping me ask questions about what I'd signed. The timing felt awfully convenient. I was starting to realize that Mom's influence reached further than I'd thought. And if she could manipulate my medical care to keep me isolated and medicated, what else could she control? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your mother called my office asking about power of attorney documents. Please call ASAP. David Chen, Notary Public. The walls were closing in, but maybe, finally, I'd found a crack in them. I called David Chen's number with shaking fingers, praying this wasn't another dead end. Chen Notary Services, a professional voice answered. This is Jessica Patterson. You texted me about my mother calling regarding power of attorney documents? Yes, thank you for calling back. Your mother contacted me this morning asking if I'd notarized any documents for a Jessica Patterson recently. She claimed she was trying to locate the originals for insurance purposes. My heart hammered. What did you tell her? Nothing, of course. Client confidentiality. But Ms. Patterson, I have to ask, are you aware that someone attempted to use your name at my office about 2 weeks ago? The room tilted. What do you mean, attempted? A woman claiming to be you came in with power of attorney paperwork. She had your ID, birth certificate, even medical records showing you were hospitalized. But something felt off. She was nervous, kept changing her story about why she couldn't wait for you to recover enough to come in person. Did she look like me? Superficially, yes. Similar height, hair color. But when I asked her to verify the address on the ID, she gave me a different street number. Then she claimed she'd recently moved and was confused from stress. That's when I refused the notarization. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by terror. If Mom had tried to forge my signature with a notary and failed, what had she done instead? Mr. Chen, this is going to sound insane, but I think my mother was impersonating me. I've been in the hospital for weeks. I never went to your office. There was a long pause. I was afraid of that. Ms. Patterson, I've already documented the incident and reported it to the State Notary Board as suspicious activity. Do you want me to file a police report? Before I could answer, Karen appeared in my doorway. Jessica, you have another visitor. I covered the phone. Who? Your mother's friend, Barbara. She says it's urgent. I'd never heard Mom mention anyone named Barbara. Mr. Chen, I have to go, but yes, please file that police report. And if my mother contacts you again, please don't tell her we spoke. Absolutely. Good luck, Ms. Patterson. Barbara turned out to be a stern woman in her 50s wearing a bank manager's blazer. She closed the door behind her and approached my bed with the confidence of someone used to delivering bad news. Jessica, I'm Barbara Hendricks from First National Bank. Your mother asked me to stop by and clarify some confusion about your accounts. What kind of confusion? Well, she mentioned you were questioning some recent transactions. I wanted to assure you that everything was handled properly. Your mother presented valid power of attorney documentation when she made the changes to your accounts. The blood drained from my face. What changes? Barbara pulled out a tablet and swiped through several screens. Let's see, consolidation of your checking and savings into a joint account with your mother as primary holder, closure of your individual investment account, and setup of automatic bill pay for your ongoing medical expenses. She made herself primary holder of my money? It's quite common in medical situations. This way she can manage your care costs without having to get your signature on every transaction. Very thoughtful, really. I want to see the power of attorney document she showed you. Barbara's professional smile flickered. I'm afraid I can't share copies of legal documents without proper authorization. You'd need to get them from your mother or your attorney. I'm telling you as the account holder that I want to see what document gave her access to my money. Ms. Patterson, your mother is listed as the primary decision-maker on these accounts now. Any requests would need to go through her. She was already standing to leave when the full horror hit me. Mom hadn't just stolen power of attorney, she'd used fake documents to convince a bank to make her the primary owner of my own accounts. My money was gone, and legally, it might not even be theft. Wait, I called out as Barbara reached for the door handle. When exactly did she make these changes? Barbara paused, checking her tablet again. The initial paperwork was filed, let me see, 3 days after your accident. Quite efficiently handled, considering the circumstances. 3 days. I'd been unconscious for the first week. I was in a coma 3 days after my accident. Well, your mother explained that you'd prepared these documents beforehand, as a precaution. Very wise planning, really. Barbara's tone remained professionally cheerful, but I caught the slight tightness around her eyes. What address did she give you for me? I'm sorry? On the paperwork. What address is listed as my residence? Barbara scrolled through her tablet, her brow furrowing slightly. 1247 Maple Street. My stomach dropped. I haven't lived at that address in 6 years. That's my mother's house. The silence stretched between us. Barbara's professional composure cracked just enough for me to see the doubt creeping in. Ms. Patterson, are you suggesting there was some kind of irregularity? I'm telling you my mother committed bank fraud using forged documents while I was unconscious in the hospital. Barbara's face went pale. She sat back down, suddenly very focused on her tablet. I think I need to make some phone calls. This conversation needs to be documented. After she left, I immediately called Mike. She didn't just steal power of attorney, she convinced a bank to make her primary holder on all my accounts using an old address and fake paperwork. Jesus, Jess. That's federal bank fraud if she used forged documents. How much money are we talking about? I pulled up my banking app, hands shaking as I logged in. The screen that loaded made me physically sick. Mike, my savings account shows a balance of $127. I had over $30,000 in there before the accident. What about your checking? It's not even showing up as my account anymore. It says I need to contact the primary account holder for access. The primary account holder. My own mother had locked me out of my own money. Okay, this is actually good news in a twisted way. The more brazen the theft, the easier it is to prove. Bank records don't lie. But what if she moved the money offshore or something? What if it's gone forever? Banks have insurance, Jess. And there are recovery processes for fraud victims. The question is whether we can prove she didn't have legitimate authority. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Sorry honey, got tied up at the lawyer's office. We'll bring those papers tomorrow instead. Rest well. 2 hearts. The lawyer's office. On the same day, a bank manager discovered discrepancies in the documents she'd used to steal my money. I called the hospital's patient advocate office. This is Jessica Patterson in room 314. I need to speak with someone about preventing unauthorized visitors and protecting my medical information. Is there a specific security concern, Ms. Patterson? Yes. I believe someone has been accessing my medical records without permission and using that information to commit financial fraud. I can have security place a flag on your room immediately. No visitors without your explicit approval, and all staff will need to verify their authorization before discussing your case. Thank you. And I need to know, if someone has power of attorney, what kind of medical decisions can they make? The pause on the other end chilled me. With medical power of attorney, they can make treatment decisions, medication changes, and even discharge determinations if the patient is deemed incompetent. Discharge determinations. Mom could literally have me declared incompetent and control where I went when I left the hospital. If she was desperate enough to commit bank fraud, what would stop her from having me transferred to some facility where she could maintain control? My phone rang. Unknown number again, but this time local. Jessica Patterson? Yes? This is Detective Morrison with Financial Crimes. I understand you want to file a report. Yes, Detective Morrison. My mother has stolen my power of attorney and used forged documents to take control of my bank accounts while I was unconscious in the hospital. I'm going to need you to walk me through this step by step. When did you first become aware of the fraudulent activity? I explained everything, the forged signature attempt at Mr. Chen's office, the bank account changes made while I was in a coma, the fake address, all of it. Detective Morrison listened without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification on dates and amounts. Ms. Patterson, I have to ask, is it possible your mother had legitimate power of attorney documents that you'd forgotten about? Family members often prepare these in advance. Detective, I'm a paralegal. I would never have signed power of attorney documents without keeping copies, and I certainly wouldn't have used my mother's address as my residence. Plus, she tried to have a notary forge my signature just yesterday. Why would she need to do that if she already had legitimate authority? Fair point. I'm going to need copies of all your financial records, any communication with your mother about these issues, and contact information for the bank manager and notary who can verify the timeline. How long does an investigation like this usually take? Depends on the complexity, but bank fraud cases typically move faster than other financial crimes because the paper trail is usually clear. If the documents are forged, we can establish that pretty quickly with handwriting analysis. Relief started to build in my chest, but Detective Morrison's next words stopped it cold. However, I need to warn you about something. If your mother realizes we're investigating, she might try to move or liquidate any remaining assets. Do you know if she has access to other accounts or property in your name? My blood turned to ice. My car. She said she was handling the insurance claim from the accident. And I had a small investment portfolio through work. I'd recommend calling those companies immediately. Today. After Detective Morrison hung up, I frantically searched for my insurance company's number. When I finally got through to a claims representative, the news was worse than I'd feared. Ms. Patterson, your claim was settled last week. The check was mailed to 1247 Maple Street per your mother's instructions. How much was the settlement? $18,500 for the vehicle total loss, plus $5,200 for personal property damage. Nearly $24,000 more that Mom had stolen. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial my investment company. Fidelity Investments, how can I help you? This is Jessica Patterson. I need to check on my 401k and investment accounts. One moment. I'm showing a recent rollover request on your accounts, Ms. Patterson. The funds were transferred to a new account at a different institution. What institution? Mountain Vista Credit Union. The paperwork showed you were consolidating your investments for easier management during your medical recovery. Mountain Vista Credit Union. I'd never heard of it. When was this transfer completed? The funds were released yesterday, actually. Your mother handled the paperwork since she had power of attorney authorization. Yesterday. While I was lying in this hospital bed, Mom was systematically draining every account I had. The investment portfolio had been my emergency fund, another $12,000 gone. I need to stop this transfer. I'm reporting this as fraud. Ma'am, I'm afraid the transfer has already been completed. You'd need to contact Mountain Vista Credit Union directly, and any fraud claims would have to go through their institution now. I hung up and immediately called Mountain Vista Credit Union, but they were closed for the weekend. Of course. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. Honey, I'm bringing Chinese food for dinner tonight. Your favorite sweet and sour chicken. Can't wait to see you. 2 hearts. She was coming here. Tonight. After spending the day stealing the last of my money and probably destroying evidence. The sweet, caring tone of her message made my skin crawl. I called Detective Morrison back. She's liquidated everything. My car insurance settlement, my investment accounts, it's all gone. And she's coming to visit me tonight. Ms. Patterson, whatever you do, don't let on that you know about any of this. Don't let on? Detective, she's stolen over $60,000 from me. How am I supposed to sit there and eat Chinese food like nothing happened? I understand your frustration, but we need her to think she's gotten away with it. The moment she knows we're onto her, she could destroy documents, move the money again, or claim you authorized everything while you were on pain medication. The thought of pretending everything was normal while Mom fed me sweet and sour chicken made me nauseous. What if she tries to make more medical decisions? The patient advocate said she could even have me discharged. That's why you need to revoke her power of attorney immediately. Do you have access to a lawyer? My friend Mike is a lawyer, but call him now. Get the revocation paperwork filed today, even if it's after hours. Most counties have emergency filing procedures. I hung up and dialed Mike, my heart pounding. Mike, she's cleaned me out. Everything. Insurance settlement, investments, savings, it's all gone. Jesus Christ, Jess. How much total? Over $60,000. Saying it out loud made it real in a way that hurt physically. And she's coming here tonight acting like nothing happened. Okay, listen carefully. I'm driving to the courthouse right now to file emergency revocation of power of attorney. But you need to be smart about tonight. Don't accuse her of anything. In fact, try to get her talking about the financial stuff. Maybe she'll admit to things on record. On record? Your phone, Jess. Record the conversation. In this state, you only need one-party consent for recordings. If she admits to accessing your accounts or moving money, that's evidence. What if she gets suspicious? She won't. She thinks you're helpless and grateful. Play into that. Thank her for handling everything while you were sick. Ask innocent questions about what she's been doing with your finances. After Mike hung up, I stared at my phone's voice recording app. Could I really manipulate my own mother into confessing to felony fraud? Then I remembered my bank balance, $127. I remembered the forged signature attempt. I remembered her calling me a fat pig while I was trapped in this bed. Yes. I absolutely could. A knock at my door interrupted my planning. Ms. Patterson? This is Dr. Williams from hospital administration. An older woman in a navy suit entered, carrying a thick folder. I understand you've raised concerns about your power of attorney documentation. I'm afraid we have a problem. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Your mother submitted medical power of attorney documents to our legal department last week. According to these papers, she has authority to make all medical decisions on your behalf, including discharge planning. But I never signed those documents. The signature appears to match the one on your admission paperwork. She opened the folder and showed me a document with my name signed at the bottom. The handwriting looked exactly like mine. Dr. Williams, that's not my signature. I've never seen this document before in my life. I'm not questioning your honesty, Ms. Patterson, but these documents were notarized and filed properly. If you're claiming they're fraudulent, we'll need a court order to disregard them. How long does a court order take? With emergency filing? 2 to 3 business days minimum. 2 to 3 days. And Mom was coming here tonight, probably with more fake paperwork and definitely with plans to maintain control. Dr. Williams, what would happen if someone with medical power of attorney decided to discharge me against my will? Her expression grew uncomfortable. If they could demonstrate it was in your best medical interest, and if our staff concurred with their assessment, we would have to honor their decision. Mom could literally kidnap me legally. Tonight. My phone buzzed, running a few minutes late, honey, but I'll be there by 7. Got extra egg rolls. 2 hearts. It was 6:45 p.m. I had 15 minutes to prepare for the performance of my life. Dr. Williams, I need you to document everything we just discussed. Write down that I'm claiming these signatures are forged and that I'm disputing the medical power of attorney. She nodded, making notes in her folder. I'll also flag your file to require supervisor approval for any discharge orders. It won't stop someone with valid power of attorney, but it will slow the process down. After she left, I called Mike back. She has medical power of attorney too. Forged documents, but they look legitimate. Shit. The revocation paperwork I'm filing covers both financial and medical, but it won't be processed until Monday morning at the earliest. Mike, she could have me discharged tonight. She could take me anywhere. Not if you refuse to go. You're conscious and competent, you can demand to stay for medical reasons. But what if? Jess, she's not going to kidnap you from a hospital. Too many witnesses. She's playing a long con here, being the devoted mother. She won't blow her cover with something that dramatic. I hoped he was right, but the woman who'd stolen $60,000 and forged multiple legal documents wasn't exactly predictable. I opened my phone's recording app and ran through the plan again. Get Mom talking about my finances. Ask innocent questions. Let her think I was grateful and helpless. Most importantly, don't let her know I suspected anything. At exactly 7 p.m., Mom breezed through my door carrying bags of Chinese food and wearing the brightest smile I'd ever seen. There's my sweetheart. You look so much better today. She kissed my forehead and started unpacking containers. I got enough food for an army. Sweet and sour chicken, lo mein, egg rolls, and that sesame beef you used to love. I started the recording app and slid my phone under my blanket. Thanks, Mom. I don't know what I would have done without you handling everything. Oh honey, that's what mothers are for. She settled into the chair beside my bed, looking genuinely happy. I've been so busy taking care of all your paperwork and accounts. It's actually a good thing I was here to handle it all. Perfect opening. It must have been so complicated dealing with insurance and banks and everything. I can't even imagine. Well, it was a lot of running around, but I managed to get everything sorted out. Your car insurance finally came through, that was a nice chunk of money. And I moved some of your investments around to better accounts with higher interest rates. She was admitting to everything so casually, like she was discussing the weather. Higher interest rates? That sounds smart. Which accounts did you move things to? Oh, just some local credit union that had better terms. Don't worry your pretty head about the details, I made sure everything is safe and earning good money for when you're back on your feet. My pretty head. While she systematically stole my entire financial future. You're amazing, Mom. I was so worried about bills and payments, but you've taken care of everything. Every last penny, sweetie. She opened a container of sweet and sour chicken. You just focus on getting better. Money stuff is too stressful for someone in your condition. The recording was going perfectly, but something in her tone made me look up. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, calculating, almost predatory. Actually, Jessica, there is one more thing we need to discuss about your finances. My blood froze. Had she figured out I was onto her? Did she somehow know about Detective Morrison or the lawyer? What kind of thing? I tried to keep my voice light and trusting. Mom smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Well, honey, I've been thinking about your living situation for when you get discharged. What about my living situation? I asked, though every instinct screamed that I didn't want to hear the answer. Well, your apartment lease is up for renewal next month, and honestly, sweetie, the rent there is just astronomical. I've been looking at your budget, she gestured vaguely at the Chinese food containers. It's really not sustainable for someone in your financial position. My financial position. The one she'd created by stealing everything I owned. But I love my apartment, Mom. I've lived there for 3 years. I kept my voice steady, remembering the phone still recording under my blanket. I know, honey, but you have to be practical. Hospital bills, physical therapy, all these medical expenses piling up. You're going to need somewhere affordable to recover. She leaned forward, her voice taking on that syrupy tone I was starting to recognize as manipulation. I've actually found the perfect solution. What kind of solution? There's this lovely assisted living facility about 20 minutes from my house. Very reasonable rates, and they specialize in helping people transition back to independent living after major accidents. Assisted living. She wanted to put me in assisted living at 28 years old. Mom, I don't need assisted living. The doctor said I'll be walking normally again in a few weeks. But sweetie, you've been through such trauma. Physical and emotional. Don't you think it would be nice to have professionals helping you during your recovery? And I could visit every day. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. She wasn't just stealing my money, she was planning to warehouse me somewhere she could maintain control indefinitely. With medical power of attorney, she could probably make decisions about my care for as long as she wanted. Have you already looked into this place? I asked carefully. Well, yes. I actually put down a small deposit to hold a room. Just in case. She picked at her lo mein noodles. The administrator was very understanding about your situation. They're used to dealing with young people who've had traumatic brain injuries. Traumatic brain injury? Mom, I never had a brain injury. Oh, I know, honey, but you've been so confused and emotional since the accident. The social worker at the facility said that's completely normal. Depression, memory issues, difficulty making rational decisions. She reached over and patted my hand. It's nothing to be ashamed of. She was literally rewriting my medical history to justify institutionalizing me. I fought to keep my expression neutral while my mind raced. If she'd already talked to administrators and social workers, if she'd given them false information about brain injuries and cognitive impairment. What did you tell them exactly? Just that you've been having some trouble with decision-making and financial management since the accident. Which is true, sweetie. You've been so overwhelmed by everything. Her smile was perfectly maternal and completely terrifying. The facility director said they see cases like yours all the time. Young adults who need a structured environment while they relearn independent living skills. My phone buzzed with a text message. Mom glanced toward the sound. Oh, don't worry about that, she said quickly. I've been screening your calls and messages so you don't get overwhelmed. Mostly just telemarketers and spam anyway. She'd been intercepting my communications too. Mike's call earlier had probably been the first one to get through in days. Actually, speaking of which. Mom reached into her purse and pulled out a new phone, still in the box. I got you this. Your old phone was damaged in the accident, remember? This one has a nice simple interface, much easier for someone in your condition. I stared at the basic flip phone, the kind designed for elderly people with cognitive issues. My phone wasn't damaged, Mom. I've been using it. Her smile flickered for just a moment. Oh, sweetie, that old thing barely works. This new one will be so much better for staying in touch with family. She started opening the package. I've already programmed in all the important numbers you'll need. The important numbers she wanted me to have. Probably just her, the assisted living facility, and maybe a few doctors she'd already spoken to about my condition. I really don't need a new phone. Jessica. Her voice carried a sharp edge I hadn't heard before. I've spent weeks cleaning up the mess your accident created. Bills, paperwork, insurance claims, medical decisions. The least you could do is trust that I know what's best for your recovery. There it was, the real mom underneath the concerned caregiver act. The one who thought she owned me. You're right, I said softly. I'm sorry. I just feel so lost with everything. Her smile returned immediately. Of course you do, honey. That's exactly why the assisted living place will be perfect. They'll help you rebuild your confidence step by step. My phone buzzed again under the blanket. Mom's eyes narrowed slightly. You know what? Why don't I just take that old phone now and get it out of your way? She reached toward my blanket where the phone was hidden, still recording our entire conversation. My heart hammered against my ribs. Actually, Mom, I think I left it in the bathroom earlier, I said quickly, pulling the blanket closer around me. One of the nurses probably moved it. Her hand paused mid-reach. Are you sure? I thought I heard it buzzing right here. Must have been the floor machine. It makes all sorts of weird noises. I forced a yawn. Actually, I'm getting pretty tired. Maybe we should say the phone setup for tomorrow? Oh no, sweetie, let's get this sorted now. I hate seeing you so disconnected from everyone. She stood up and started scanning the room. Let me just find that old phone and we'll make the switch. Panic clawed at my throat as she moved toward the bathroom. If she found nothing there, she'd come back and search more thoroughly. The recording was still running. I had her admissions about moving my money, about putting deposits down at assisted living facilities, about intercepting my communications. But only if I could keep the phone hidden. Mom, wait. I tried to think fast. Before you do that, can you tell me more about this assisted living place? It sounds really nice. She stopped and turned back, her face lighting up. Oh honey, I'm so glad you're being open-minded about this. It really is lovely. They have activities, group therapy sessions, and the staff is so patient with residents who are struggling with cognitive issues. And you said it's only 20 minutes from your house? Exactly. I could visit every day, help with your appointments, make sure you're taking medications properly. She settled back into her chair, temporarily distracted from the phone hunt. The director, Mrs. Patterson, was so understanding when I explained your situation. She said they have several young residents who are dealing with similar challenges. Similar challenges. Brain injuries that didn't exist, cognitive impairments she'd invented. What kind of challenges? Well, like I mentioned, difficulty making financial decisions, confusion about legal matters, emotional instability. She counted on her fingers like she was reading from a list. Mrs. Patterson said the first few months are always the hardest, but once residents settle into the routine, they feel much more secure. The first few months. She was planning to keep me there for months. And do you think my insurance will cover it? Oh, don't worry about that. I'll handle all the financial arrangements. Her smile was bright and completely empty. That's what power of attorney is for, after all. She said it so casually, like she wasn't admitting to planning my entire future imprisonment. My phone buzzed again under the blanket, and this time her eyes locked onto the sound like a predator tracking prey. Jessica, that phone is definitely here somewhere. She stood up again, more determined now. It's not good for your recovery to have all these random people trying to contact you. Very overstimulating. She moved back toward my bed, and I realized I was out of distractions. In about 30 seconds, she was going to find the phone, discover the recording, and know that I'd heard everything. All the evidence I'd gathered, all the careful planning with Detective Morrison and Sarah, it would all be worthless. Actually, Mom, I said, my voice coming out stronger than I felt, there's something I need to tell you first. She paused, one hand already reaching for my blanket. What's that, honey? I looked at her face, the fake concern, the calculating eyes, the smile that had fooled me for weeks while she systematically destroyed my life. And I realized I was done pretending to be helpless. I remember everything about the power of attorney. Her smile froze completely. The silence stretched between us for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Mom's hand was still reaching toward my blanket, but she'd gone completely still, like a video that had buffered mid-frame. What did you say? Her voice was barely above a whisper. I said I remember everything about the power of attorney. The forged signature. The fake witnesses. The notary who never met me. I kept my voice calm even though my heart was trying to punch through my ribcage. I also remember you stealing my credit cards and selling my grandmother's jewelry. Her face went through several rapid changes, surprise, calculation, and then something cold and sharp that I'd never seen before. The concerned mother mask was finally slipping. Honey, you're confused again. This is exactly what I was telling Mrs. Patterson about. The accident affected your memory, and you're having trouble distinguishing between reality and... Stop. I sat up straighter in the hospital bed. Just stop with the fake concern and the made-up brain injury. We both know exactly what you did. She slowly lowered her hand from the blanket but didn't sit back down. Instead, she moved closer to the side of my bed, and for the first time since the accident, I felt genuinely afraid of my own mother. Jessica, you need to be very careful about what you're saying right now. Her voice had dropped to a tone I'd never heard before, soft but somehow threatening. You're clearly having some kind of episode, and making wild accusations isn't going to help your recovery. Is that what you're going to tell people? That I'm having episodes? Just like you told the assisted living facility I had brain damage? I could feel sweat beating on my forehead, but I forced myself to keep talking. How long have you been planning this, Mom? Since the day of the accident, or did it take you a few days to realize how vulnerable I was? Her eyes narrowed. I have sacrificed everything to take care of you. I've spent weeks managing your life, paying your bills, dealing with insurance companies. And this is how you thank me? By accusing me of, what exactly? Theft. Fraud. Forgery. Each word felt like throwing a stone at a window, and I could see cracks starting to form in her composure. Identity theft. Financial abuse. And whatever it's called when you try to have someone committed based on lies. Something shifted in her expression then, and the fake sweetness disappeared entirely. You have no idea what you're talking about. You've been barely coherent for weeks. Crying, confused, completely unable to handle even basic decisions. No one would believe a word you said, even if you could remember it correctly, which clearly you can't. My phone buzzed again under the blanket, and this time she lunged for it. Give me that phone, Jessica. Right now. I clutched the blanket tighter. No. Give me the phone, or I'm calling the nurses to sedate you. I'll tell them you're having a psychotic break. The threat hung between us, and I realized she was probably serious. How easy would it be for her to convince the medical staff that I was delusional? She'd already been managing my care for weeks, had probably built relationships with the nurses, positioned herself as a reliable family member dealing with a difficult patient. You can't keep doing this, I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. Can't I? She moved even closer, and I could smell her perfume, the same vanilla scent that used to make me feel safe as a child. Now it made me nauseous. Jessica, you're a 28-year-old woman who can barely manage her own medication schedule. You've been financially irresponsible for years, emotionally unstable since the accident, and now you're having paranoid delusions about your own mother. What judge would trust you with your own affairs? The worst part was that she was probably right. She'd been building this narrative for weeks, maybe months. And if you try to fight me on this, she continued, her voice dropping even lower, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how unstable you really are. The thread hung in the air between us like poison gas. I could see in her eyes that she meant every word, she would destroy my reputation, my credibility, my entire future if I tried to expose her. But then I remembered something that made my chest tight with a different kind of fear. Mom, where's my laptop? Her expression flickered for just a second. What laptop? My work laptop. The one with all my client files on it. My voice was getting stronger despite the panic rising in my throat. I need it for when I go back to work. Honey, you're not going to be working for a while. The doctor said. What doctor? Show me the medical report that says I can't work. I was pushing now, and I could see her calculating how to respond. Show me any documentation that says I have brain damage or cognitive impairment. Jessica, you're getting agitated again. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Answer the question. Where's my laptop? She was quiet for too long. In that silence, I understood something that made my stomach drop to the floor. You sold it, I whispered. Oh my God, you sold my work laptop. With all my client files. I would never. Those files are confidential. Attorney-client privilege. There are social security numbers, financial records, personal information for dozens of people. The magnitude of what she'd done was hitting me like a freight train. Mom, that's not just theft. That's a data breach. I could be disbarred. My clients could sue me for everything I have left. For the first time since this conversation started, she looked genuinely panicked. I made sure everything was deleted first. You don't know how to permanently delete files. And even if you did, whoever bought it could recover the data. I was sitting up fully now, adrenaline overriding everything else. When did you sell it? How long ago? It was just sitting there, and you weren't using it, and the medical bills. When? Last week, she said quickly. But I'm sure it's fine. I sold it to a nice family at a garage sale. A garage sale. She'd sold my work laptop with confidential client files to random strangers at a garage sale. The professional consequences alone could destroy me even if I got everything else back. Give me my phone. Right now. My voice was shaking but firm. I need to call my clients. I need to call the state bar. I need to. You're not calling anyone. She reached for the blanket again, more aggressively this time. You're clearly having a complete breakdown, and I'm going to get the nurses. Don't you dare touch that phone. Jessica Marie, you are going to calm down right now, or I swear I will have you committed for your own safety. The room felt like it was spinning. In the span of 5 minutes, I'd gone from having evidence against her to realizing that her crimes were so much worse than I'd thought. And she was still threatening to have me locked up if I fought back. My phone buzzed again, and this time I could see the desperation in her eyes. She knew that phone was her biggest threat. One last chance, she said, her voice deadly calm. Give me the phone, apologize for these ridiculous accusations, and we can go back to focusing on your recovery. Or I walk out that door and tell everyone that you completely lost touch with reality. I stared at her, clutching the blanket that hid my lifeline, and realized I had to make a choice that would determine the rest of my life. I looked at my mother's face, really looked at it, and saw something I'd never noticed before. The way her jaw was set, the coldness in her eyes, the calculated way she was breathing. This wasn't desperation or panic. This was someone who had done this before. How long have you been planning this? I asked quietly. Not just since the accident. This whole thing. How long? She blinked, and for a split second, I saw something like surprise cross her features. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't break eye contact. The power of attorney documents were too perfect. Too complete. You had everything ready to go. The pieces were clicking together in my mind like a puzzle I'd been staring at for weeks. You've been researching this. Guardianship laws, conservatorship, financial exploitation of incapacitated adults. Haven't you? Her silence was answer enough. Oh my God. The realization hit me like ice water. You were waiting for something like this to happen. An accident, an illness, anything that would make me vulnerable enough for you to. That's ridiculous. But her voice was different now. Flatter. Like she was tired of pretending. Is it? Because I'm remembering things now. Conversations we had months ago about my savings account. Questions about my work, my clients, my income. You asked me about my retirement fund at Christmas. I thought you were just being interested in my life, but you were cataloging my assets. She shifted her weight, and I could see her thinking, calculating. Jessica, you're having paranoid thoughts. This is exactly why you need help. Stop calling me Jessica like that. You only use my full name when you're trying to manipulate me. My phone buzzed insistently, and this time I caught a glimpse of the screen through the blanket. Multiple missed calls. Text message notifications. And something else that made my heart skip. A calendar notification. Court hearing 2 p.m. today. Today. Right now, while I was lying in this hospital bed arguing with my mother, there was a court hearing happening. A hearing I should have been notified about. A hearing that would probably determine my future. What's happening in court today, Mom? This time, she couldn't hide her reaction. Her face went pale, and she took a step back from the bed. There's no. Stop lying. The words came out louder than I intended. There's a hearing today, isn't there? About the conservatorship. About having me declared incompetent. My voice was rising, and I could hear footsteps in the hallway outside. That's why you're here trying to get my phone. Because someone's been trying to reach me about it. Jessica, lower your voice. How did you schedule a competency hearing without me knowing? How is that even legal? But even as I asked, I knew the answer. You told them I was too impaired to participate. You probably submitted medical records, didn't you? Fake ones, or ones you somehow. The door opened, and a nurse peered in. Everything okay in here? We heard raised voices. My mother immediately shifted into performance mode. She's having another episode, I'm afraid. Getting agitated and confused again. I was just trying to calm her down. I'm not having an episode. I looked desperately at the nurse. Please, I need to know, has anyone been calling for me today? About a court hearing? The nurse looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Let me check with the front desk about any calls. But Han, you need to try to stay calm. Your mother's right that getting worked up isn't good for your recovery. My recovery from what? I wanted to scream. But I could see how this looked, a patient in a hospital bed, arguing with her concerned mother, making what probably sounded like wild claims about court hearings and conspiracies. As the nurse stepped back out, my mother leaned closer. Last chance, she whispered. Give me the phone, or in 30 seconds I'm going to start screaming for help because my daughter is threatening me. I stared at her, and finally understood who I was really dealing with. I took a deep breath and made my choice. Nurse. I called out, loud enough that she'd hear me in the hallway. Please come back. I need help. My mother's eyes widened in shock. She'd expected me to cave under her threat, but I was done being afraid of her. The nurse hurried back in, looking concerned. What's wrong, honey? My mother just threatened to falsely claim I was threatening her if I didn't give up my personal property. I kept my voice calm and clear. I need you to witness that I am lucid, coherent, and requesting to speak with hospital security and the patient advocate immediately. Jessica, don't do this, my mother hissed, but her mask was slipping. My name is Jessica Chen, I'm an attorney with Morrison & Associates, and I believe I'm being held here under false pretenses. I looked directly at the nurse. I need to verify my admission status and whether I'm here voluntarily or under some kind of psychiatric hold. The nurse looked between us, clearly out of her depth. Let me get the charge nurse and patient advocate. Mrs. Chen, maybe you should wait in the family lounge while we sort this out. I'm not leaving, my mother said firmly. My daughter is clearly having a mental health crisis. But something had shifted. The nurse was looking at me differently now, not as a confused patient, but as someone who might actually know what she was talking about. Ma'am, I need to ask you to step outside while we assess the situation, the nurse said to my mother. It's protocol when there are concerns about family dynamics. The moment my mother reluctantly left the room, I pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls from my law partner David, 6 from my assistant, and 4 from a number I didn't recognize. I called David first. Jess. Thank God. Where the hell are you? There's a conservatorship hearing in 20 minutes and your mother's lawyer is claiming you're completely incapacitated. I'm at Memorial Hospital, and I'm fine. David, listen carefully, I need you to get to that courthouse and tell Judge Morrison I'm requesting an emergency continuance. I'll be there within the hour. But your mother said. My mother has been lying about everything. She's stolen my POA, my savings, and sold my laptop. I have evidence, and I need you to trust me. There was a pause. I'll handle the continuance. Do you need me to pick you up? Yes. And David? Call the State Bar's ethics hotline. My work laptop was sold at a garage sale with client files on it. We need to get ahead of this. By the time the patient advocate arrived 30 minutes later, I had my discharge paperwork ready and my phone calls made. David was on his way. I'd spoken to 3 clients who confirmed they'd never been contacted about any data breach, and I discovered that my mother had somehow obtained my medical records from the ER to support her conservatorship petition. Ms. Chen, the patient advocate said, I've reviewed your file. You were admitted for observation after your accident, but there's no psychiatric hold. You're free to leave at any time. My mother appeared in the doorway, looking frantic. You can't let her leave. She's not stable. Actually, ma'am, your daughter appears completely competent to make her own medical decisions. The advocate's tone was cool. And she's requested that you be removed from her visitor list. The look on my mother's face was one I'll never forget, pure rage mixed with disbelief that her carefully constructed plan was crumbling. 2 hours later, I walked into Judge Morrison's courtroom in my hospital clothes but with my head held high. The conservatorship petition was dismissed, my assets were frozen pending investigation, and my mother's lawyer quietly withdrew from representation. It wasn't over, there would be criminal charges, financial recovery, and years of therapy ahead. But for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I was finally free.